All right. So first off, for background and motivation, what first drew you to chaplainry and specifically to hospice and palliative care?
So with chaplaincy, it was kind of I kind of had a roundabout experience of coming into chaplaincy. And it's funny because most of the chaplains that I've talked to, um, they don't start out kind of going, "Oh, I'm going to become a chaplain." It it's kind of they kind of get um I don't say pulled into it, but they kind of get drawn into it differently. So for me, I'd finished a master's degree in theology, and I had started a doctorate, and I was teaching um, and trying to get hired on, and it didn't really work. Different things. One was COVID, and some of the other things. And so I was working a graveyard shift in homes with developmentally delayed adults, and I was trying to find something that was more in my field and of theology, and so I responded to a job for to become a chaplain. And so I interviewed, and they said, "Well, we don't really hire anybody that doesn't have any CPE experience." And I'm like, "CP what?" And so they kind of explained it to me. And so they said they had a program, so I signed up and did a unit and just fell in love with it. Just love what I do. And as far as palliative care, so I don't have any experience really with hospice, just kind of roundabout. But with palliative care, um, it began as when I was working doing CPE. In one of my units, I had experience or had talked to our palliative care chaplain, who worked with the palliative care team, and kind of just kind of took an interest in it. And then I applied for this job. I didn't know it was palliative care when I initially applied for it, but found out it was, and just kind of was drawn to it because of the interdisciplinary team and the um, just working together so closely with the team and helping in kind of at the onset of disease. Excuse me. And so um, just really, I think palliative care is a great um, way of go our way great tool in helping people. And and it's been amazing being part of that team and uh, helping with that. And right now, our team is it's basically me and the nurses. We don't have a provider right now. I think they're hoping to get a provider at some point, but kind of just do the best that we can, I think.
Understood. Thank you for the clarity. By the way, what does a provider do actually for, how do they benefit you particularly?
Like a provider within palliative care.
Yes.
So palliative care, they comes in, it's a consult service. And so they're going to take a look at they're going to look at the charts, they're going to look at everything kind of going on, and then make recommendations kind of from what they see, kind of the whole aspect of it. And the provider would be able to make notes, talk to the doctor, and be able to prescribe things, and the nurses be able to recommend different things. Um, Without a provider, the nurses come in and they can make recommendations and kind of talk about palliative care and the overall program, but they're not going to be able to make any sort of like major changes, especially when it comes to like medication. They're going to have to talk to that, and I mean their specialty is not within that realm; it's in within nursing. So they do that and really give a lot of education on palliative care, kind of what they do, and and a lot of support and the medical side. And then as chaplain, I come in on the spiritual side. But having a provider to come in and really help manage things and make recommendations for med management or treatment management, um, that are would be just a lot. Would really round out the team.
Okay, kind of like a broker, maybe?
What's that?
Like a broker?
No, I'm talking like a doctor.
Okay, okay.
So when I
I
say
got you.
provider, I mean like a doctor. So we have nurses, we have three nurses, but we don't have a physician right now. And
Ah,
so a
I see.
palliative care physician would come in and look at the overall picture, like medications, treatments, recommendations made, and kind of go see what they would have. And they may go, yeah, I think I like your recommendation, or maybe this is a better option. And just kind of, because it's a consult service, it's not like they're taking over. They're just
Mhm.
coming in to kind of consult and add kind of a holistic, um, overall holistic approach to it. So approaching the medical side, the spiritual side, social side. If you have like a social worker, which we don't, we have case managers that work with us, but they're not part of the palliative care team per se. But generally, in a full palliative care team, like the one I was in the hospital I was at before, and kind of, I didn't work with them, but I worked in the team, but I worked with them and also got a chance to meet them and kind of pick their brains. But they had physicians, or so they had doctors, nurse practitioners, PAs. They had some nurses, social workers, and then chaplains. So it was a very robust team, and they were able to um, do a lot of things. And sometimes it's one of those things where they may be consulted, and maybe the doctor doesn't feel like they need to be involved, like okay, they're on the right medical management, but maybe the chaplain social worker needs to be involved and come in and offer suggestions of different things. So it's but then they come back to the team and say, hey, this is what we're doing. And it's really a lot more consulting and working together in providing um, the best experience and the most help for the patient.
Understood. So like a super doctor. Gotcha. uh, how has your understanding of the chaplain role evolved since you first began?
So when I first began, I we talked about this in the Zoom meeting before. I think I was thinking of it more as a religious type of thing, helping those um, in their religious needs, um, and uh, so prayers are calling uh, their clergy or whatever. But I think uh, it's evolved to realizing that we're here for everybody, belief or non-belief, and a lot of times religion may not be part of it, but it's just being there um to, like we said before, holding that space and being there to listen um to just to provide support. And sometimes that's all it is. It's just being able to listen and go, yeah, I hear you frustrated. I hear, that this sucks. You've been through a lot. And sometimes it's just being that, and that can make a huge difference because it feels like they're listened to. And so I think it was very narrow, kind of in that religious sort of realm, but it's expanded to realize that there's so much more, that meaning making. What do they find meaning in? Um, whether it's family, whether it's nature, whatever it is.
Understood. Thank you for that. For part B, for like role, authority, and professional identity, what meaningful authority, skills, and forms of influence come with the role of being a chaplain?
I think that it comes with sometimes that chaplain authority comes with going, hey, the telling are being able to help the patient advocate for themselves. Hey, this is what you want. This is what you don't want. Or being able to sit in um, patient, like a family care meeting, and being able to help the patients understand what the doctors say. Because there's been meetings I've been in, and can be doctors can be very confusing in the way they talk, and like the information just kind of just right over their head. And so um being there, but um also sometimes it may be that I've been in a visit, and the I'm with a patient, and have a lot that's going on and they want to talk. And maybe it's the nurse comes in thinking I'm just using this as an example. Um, Maybe comes in saying, "Hey, we need to do this," and it's like the patient doesn't need that right now. They need to talk, or can you do that in a moment? Just simple things. It's not like saying no, don't do that at all, but maybe can you give it just a few minutes until we're done here? Um, and you just kind of supporting and trying to respect the patient and helping them in what their ultimate wishes are.
Understood. You briefly mentioned some of the aspects that have been kind of meaningful to you, but can you expand on that? Like the most rewarding thing you take away in a week's time or a period of however you want to scope it out?
I think for the rewarding part for me is just being there, just to supporting people in, I mean, kind of some of the worst times in their life. I mean, you're there, and for them to just feel like they have somebody that they can talk to. I mean, it still surprises me to this day, um, when I can go into um, a room and say, "Hey, I'm a chaplain," and they just unload. I mean, and they just tell you everything, and it's like, you don't really know me. I mean, all I
Mm.
said was the chaplain, and finding that piece. I mean, I've had patients that uh, they've had really bad experiences with the hospital or with doctors, but they've requested chaplain. They've requested me specifically in times past, and going and being able to just be there to, I guess, support them as they're going through this process. It's really rewarding, and it can be hard because you've got some really, just really crappy things that go on as part of life, but being able to be there and try to offer a small little bit of support when sometimes it just feels like the world is collapsing around in on them. So that's what I find the most rewarding. And also, I think too, for me, is I have ADHD, and so I bounce around a lot of. I'll always I have medication that helps regulate it, but the I like the kind of different. I kind of like the there's a lot of difference. A lot of there's not a lot of monotony to my day. There's a lot of different things that come up, and I've seen some pretty crazy things, and sometimes it's like you think seen everything, and something new comes in, and you're just like, well, that was unexpected.
Mm.
So I like that part of it, and you find the humor where you can, you to kind of keep you um, to work on that self care.
Understood. Uh, Great. Uh, to follow up, I'm really charming this career life, but I'm looking at like the glass door, and I want to get more scope of like the financial, economic, or social incentives of chaplaincy, and to clarify like are there kickbacks or referrals of like uh, a home or anything?
Well, like, are you like a home like benefits for like like buying? Is that kind of what you're thinking, or
More so uh, funeral services. Oh, I could recommend these people for planning versus these people, or
oh, I see what you're saying.
anything.
No, as a chaplain, we don't make recommendations, because that's just it's just not an ethical situation, and also it can be open. I think the hospital up to different type of lawsuits uh, for that different things. We have lists that we'll give, and we'll say, hey, these are the some of the options. There may be more. Feel free to use any of these or not. Um, but yeah, we don't have any sort of like kickbacks or uh referrals or our kickbacks like that type of thing. So try to be as honest and upfront with people as I can. And honestly, I people ask me, actually just had this happen earlier this week, asked me, well, can do you know a good which funeral home is the best, what the prices are? And I honestly don't. I haven't done. I kind of try to stay within my lane, and I haven't really looked to see what prices are, what the difference is, and um, so it's honestly just up to them. And trying to think of any other place that would give us kickbacks. I mean, that would probably be um, only one. Well, and I mean, sometimes, for example, like another area that you could say, that some religions or some, I shouldn't say religion, some churches may bring stuff in or different things to give out to patients, and we're very leery about that if it seems like marketing. So, like if they give something out and um, I'm trying to think of like a good example. Like, so for example, somebody came and brought like I can't remember. It was like a little like handkerchief or something that had a scripture print on. That's fine. But I think there used to be something, or there was something with it too. It's like, please join us for worship services,
Mm.
such and such. It's like, okay, your gift is fine, but this other part feels like proselyting, and we're endorsing a certain religion. So that's kind of another area we really try to stay open, um, or should stay away from. Um, or like if we're wearing, for example, like say if I was wearing some sort of Christian type shirt or something, it would look like I'm just a Christian chaplain. But people often ask me what religion are you? And I'll say, I work for Anvita. I'm here to support you. So trying to be there, support them in their beliefs and what they need, then coming and looking like you're endorsing a certain um, church, religion, or funeral home or whatever.
Understood. And are there any like social incentives, for example, like military people get military discounts? Do you like get HHRP or are there any like clubs or benefits?
Well, I mean, so the benefits that I get, I mean, I work for the hospital, so hospitals are pretty good with their benefits. Um, and then I think that I was just recently looking. There are some places that offer like military, police, hospital, or like hospital workers, like incentives for like home loans or different things like that. With working for the hospital. Um, yeah, so I think that's just kind of with any type of job. So some like if you're a police officer, you might get incentive this way, like financial incentives through some company. And if you work for the hospital, you might do that. But as for like being a chaplain specifically, I can't think of any. I think it's just mainly where you work and the healthcare and whatever else. And if your organization maybe has um, agreements with some places that offer some sort of like employee discounts of some sort, because I know there's a few here that the hospital has um, agreements with.
Gotcha. Okay. What ethical challenges arise in hospice chaplaincy, and how do you navigate them?
So I think the ethical the the ethical dilemmas that you is just anything within healthcare. Have you taken the applied healthcare ethics class yet in the
Yeah.
program?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's those four areas that you have that you're um, conscientious of, um, making sure that you're doing that, but also just trying to be conscientious um, of like what the patient wants. So I maybe used this in a Zoom example when we had the Zoom meeting, but like for example, if I go in there and start, praying, the patient may be unconscious or whatever, and but they may be an atheist. I mean, honestly, nobody would probably say anything, but ethically it's not really in line with their beliefs. So I mean, trying to be just honor their beliefs and support them and what they need. Um, but really, once again, I think it falls back to those healthcare ethics. And then also, like I said, being honest with the within the when it comes to like mortuaries or whatever else, and not recommending Oh yeah, you should go with this one, or this one's crap, go with this one kind of deal. So,
Hmm, okay. Are there jurisdictional or legal limits you must be mindful of in your work?
um, trying to think, like, I mean, once again, it's just the healthcare. Um, so some of the things that like legal limits and different things. Um, One of the things that we'll have to be mindful of as a chaplain is you do charting. So any visit you do, so like I go and see somebody and I have to chart on that patient. Anything that I enter in there, if say if there's later a lawsuit, I can be called up to testify on that. So legally, what am I going to be putting in there? Um, and which could be this could also be part of the limit. So say I go in there and I say patient is depressed. Well, I get called up and they're like, "Well, you said the patient is depressed. What makes you able to make that diagnosis?" I can't. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a therapist. So I try to avoid anything like that. Um, try to be very um, general in my notes because in a ways they're telling me some of these things in confidence. So it's um, I don't need to put everything down. So somebody may get start really telling me all sorts of stuff about a situation, and a lot of times I may just put patient expressed feelings concerning situation.
Hmm,
I mean, if somebody needs more explanation, I can get talk to them in person, but I don't need to go into a lot of that because one, the patient may not have given me permission to put those down, and two, um, it just wouldn't be appropriate for me to put those down in case there's ever any of those type of things. So those are some of the legalities that you keep in mind, and then charting. Um, if there's when you're using anything that has to do with electronic medical records.
hmm,
Um, you don't, if you're not involved with a patient's care, you don't need to get in there. You don't get into other stuff like HIPAA information. You don't give out that information because I work for the hospital. I'm not going to give out that type of information. So there is legal um, legalities that I have to keep in mind. As far as jurisdictional, chaplains are not like doctors or nurses where I have to be licensed in the state. There's a credentialing body, but it's like, and they want you to be credentials, but I don't have to be certified to work as. Let me take that back. Most places want you to be certified within a certain amount of time if you're just starting. Um, but it's not like you can't be a chaplain if you don't have certification. So like say a nurse, they can work under another nurse or something until they are past the test and become a registered nurse, and then they can work on their own. Chaplains, I can keep working and doing my working, and then um, and I don't have to be like supervised or anything. It's just getting the certification, basically meaning that I've met certain credentials that they acknowledge that I have done everything. I've done and the most of it is with the with it is explaining different areas that like competencies is what they call them. Um, Having 2,000 hours after your fourth unit, and then having 4 units of CPE, and then of course having a master's degree. Um, Usually say in divinity, but it doesn't have to necessarily be in divinity or theology. There are ways that you can have a master's degree and you can actually so say you get in the master's degree in Thanatology and you want to do
hmm,
this, you could look at and say you go through all the CPE. I'm just saying for you, like if that's something you did, but just in general, if anybody in this program go through do the clinical pastoral education, you got your master's degree, They may say, okay, well, we need you to do a few more, do a few credits. Usually, maybe like it might be a certification or something in religion. So, I mean, it's not going to be like, oh, you have to go get a whole new degree. You just have to supplement your education just a little bit to finish certification.
Understood. Uh, to what extent? Oh, no, sorry. To go back on that question. Within legal limits, also, I find it kind of cool that chaplains can officiate marriages.
Yeah. So with each state is different. So um, I'm in Arizona, so I don't know what the requirement is for Arizona. Um, so I think there's a few caveats to that. One is the state you're in, and then also if they have a particular church, or if they have a particular church they want, then that might be an issue. But if it's just like they want a marriage, you just have to look at the state requirements. So generally, I think most chaplains meet that requirement. They can do that.
Cool, cool. To what extent are private confessions or spiritual? Oh, actually, you already answered this. Let's skip the next one. Now we're talking about collaboration and team dynamics. Which professionals tend to be your strongest allies in hospice care?
So I think for me, because of, and I explained a little bit of our team, the nature of it, I think working with the nurses, um, the nurses that we have in palliative care, they're great. Um, and generally, I think that's just generally the case in general with the just working as. So I work with the palliative care team, but I also I cover a unit as well, an oncology unit,
Mm.
and so the just going in, even talking to any of the nurses on there, you can generally ask them, and they have an idea of like, hey, what's going on. So for example, today I had a nurse that I talked to, and quite a few times she told me, she goes, have you gone to visit the patient there yet? And I go, no, I haven't done that yet today. Um, hey, can you hold on just one second? I don't know who this is. I think
No
this is
problem.
a
I'll pause it.
somebody for here.
No worries. I'll pause.
Okay. As just something else. It just said it looked like it was from the hospital, so something from work, but it wasn't important. So it and she told me, she goes, well, the spouse is out in the waiting area crying because they got bad news. And so I've had that happen quite a bit, where nurses are very attuned to what is going on with patients, and where they may not be able to take care of it, or may not have the time. One, they may not have the time, and two, they may not be able to just be there with them and offer that they can make that referral. And those are great referrals. Sometimes though, they may see something and go, hey, will you go take a look at it? It looks like there is. And you go in, and the patient or family goes, no, we're okay. So meaning that, they just needed a few minutes. They didn't really, it wasn't really bad. It was the nurse or the spiritual provider, or the provider, saw something in it. Maybe within them, it felt like it was bad, and they needed that. So it was kind of their need once again. But yeah, nurses, I think, are generally the best. Doctors are good too, but they're busy, and so they talk a little bit to you. But yeah, I would say nurses, and then the CNAs, the certified nurses assistants, are just probably the strongest allies in within medical care, because they really have their pulse on what's going on within the units.
Gotcha. So, in the same sense, who would be like an underrated ally that you rely on?
Oh, I would say maybe friends and family. Sometimes friends and family make referrals, or they'll tell you something about what's going on that can be helpful for when you're talking to patients. So oftentimes they're in the midst of it too, and they're going through their own thing, and so you're helping care for them. But there are times when they are like sharing information. It's like, hey, this is going on, just so you know. Um, that information, take it for what it's worth. Sometimes could be good, sometimes could be bad, because there's always family dynamics at work. So
Mhm. Gotcha. So to expand on that, have you ever felt pulled into a family conflict or triangulated in these family dynamics?
yes, I think I started mentioning that in the Zoom meeting. So in my first unit of CPE, there was a couple. The husband was getting ready to discharge, and the wife was there, and she made a comment like, "Oh, I just worried about him because he hasn't accepted Jesus or something, and so I kind of got pulled into it. So it was, like I said, my first unit, I was pretty new at it, and it really pulled me into their argument over that, and um it's one of those things that kind of triggered me a little bit. I had to really reflect on that because of stuff that from my growing up and my family of origin. And so I really, really try to avoid being triangulated into any sort of family dynamics, because ultimately it's messy, and I don't want to be involved because you'll hear, oh, they're this or they do this, or it's like, no, I'm not your therapist. Let's focus with the issues at hand with your loved one, and that. So I mean, I have been pulled into them, but I try not to stay involved very long, or try to solve any of them. Just do what's going to be helpful to get to where we need to go, with the patients and with the family.
Gotcha. So, thank you for that. And to expand to the next section about scope of work and practical realities, I know you're based in the hospital now, but throughout the career, any um, creative experiences have you had of like different locations that you can provide here at?
Um, so I personally, I love the hospital. I love what I'm at, but there's so many opportunities for chaplains, and I think it's actually there's a lot of the role of chaplains is growing. So hospitals, of course, universities will often have chaplains available for students that are kind of navigating a crises or and different things. Um, Facilities, prisons, mental hospitals. We talked about some of the big corporations do like Tyson Foods. Dr. Daniels mentioned Google. I don't know if they still do, but I was surprised I didn't know about that. Outdoor, I there are probably different opportunities within um, maybe some health or maybe some like camp type settings. I'm not sure, but there's lots of different type of roles um, that you can do. Oh yeah, then hospice, um, nursing homes. Um, and different things. So, but hospitals, hospice units. One of the chaplains I did my CPE when just got a job in a hospice unit, a hospice organization. And so, yeah, there's opportunities if you don't want to work within the hospital, you can look at different other different things. So just kind of whatever you feel like is your cup of tea, I guess.
Mhm. Well, that's comforting. Um, are you on call or expected to work unusual hours, or do you follow a more predictable schedule? Is it like a salary hourly thing, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so each hospital is different. Right now, I'm hourly, but I have a predictable schedule. So I work Monday through Friday, like 7:30 to 4. I'm working a little later this week because of some time I took off, um, but I have worked I did work a night shift the other day, so I feel I can fill in sometimes when I need to, because we try to keep the hospital with staff with a chaplain 24/7. So that means there are times with like holidays and stuff. A lot of times it really depends too on the amount of we have a gener or we have a really great department of chaplains here, but there are hospitals that don't have as many chaplains, so there's a the possibility, just depending on where you work at, of um, being on call more, working unexpected hours. Being on call, it might be that oh you have to be within a certain amount of time, or you may be at the hospital, but you might have like a sleep room or whatever, and just expected to respond to like codes, like code blues, like if the like cardiac event type thing. Um, Also, for a lot of clinical pastoral education programs, um, the students, so the residents, interns, whatever, they'll often work night. They may work those unpredictable um, schedules, um, and they do that for a couple of reasons. One is because they're learning and it gives them a better experience. Because I found that working the hospital at night is much different than working during the day. Working it during the weekend is much different than working it during the week, just because sometimes a lot it's there's a lot of deaths that happen at night, just kind of the way it works. Accidents happen at night and then during the weekend and stuff. Um, so yeah, it really depends on the hospital, their staffing needs, and then the CPE program and whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, there's a neat stat about saying most deaths happen at night. I kind of assumed it, but I never had it validated from someone's experience. So thank you for that insight. Um, what, sorry, in your experience, how often do patients die surrounded by others versus alone?
Um, well, a lot of times they do have others at bedside. There are a lot of times though they do not have people. Um, and I we talked about this during the Zoom meeting, and that could be a good thing or bad thing. And a lot of times it's sad because they don't have family or anybody that really cares about them. But a lot of times a family's there, and sometimes it's like they're not. They've gone home, and maybe they die when they're not there, and that may be. I think Dr. Daniels did a great explain that very well. Is sometimes patients don't want a lot of people around. And it is funny because I have seen that. I think I said this during the video or during the Zoom call. Um, I've seen it where it seems like patients hang on until somebody comes, or like a loved one comes, and then all of a sudden they die. So, did you need something, Anthony?
No, no, I'm just gonna check with you, see if there's any like comfort care patients.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So sorry, I'm taking this class and
Oh, no.
just saying I will have some questions from chaplaincy. So
Okay,
all right,
thank you, sir.
yeah, thanks. Um, so one of our more unique chaplains. Um, but he switches back and forth. But anyway, um, so they may be waiting and then they die when after somebody's arrived. It's really interesting. Or there's times when there's family in the room, they may go out to talk to the doctor, talk to nurse, or talk on the phone, and the patient dies. And sometimes in those situations they feel terrible. They're like, oh, I should have been there. Sometimes it's just they want it's almost like they know that they just would rather die when somebody's not at their side. I mean, it's. I mean, I don't know on that. It's just kind of. I don't think it's a coincidence, but it, I mean, everybody's different. I mean, for me personally, I want family there with me, but some people may not.
Hmm.
Um, and now as for the by choice or not, sometimes it's people just don't have family, and it is sad. And you do feel for them. That's why there's programs like I explained before. No One Dies Alone, where volunteers go and just sit with them, and it's just kind of a they don't have to talk or really do anything. They just be there as a presence because people. I feel like patients, especially at the end, can still sense that there are others there, present, caring for them. So,
Neat. Cool. What are some common concerns or complaints people bring to you during chaplain visits?
a lot of them are, I think, my request is not being, or my desires or whatever is not being respected. I want this or I want that or I want, and I get it. I mean, people want certain things, but unfortunately, it's just not always possible with the healthcare system. I mean, and so you listen to them, you try to hear what the issues are, and try to, you know, um, I remember one, and I can't even remember what the issue was that um, she was that I think it was she. I can't remember. I'm just trying to remember specifically. I can't remember what it was, but as it was talking, just getting under the feelings that they were expressing, it was more so that she didn't feel like that the healthcare, like the nurses or whatever, were listening. And it's just a matter of just even just listening to them, just kind of even feeling validated. Like, oh, okay. So I think that's the big one. Um, Once again, I don't know. I don't go in there, and I listen to patients, and I take what they say kind of always with a grain of salt. Like, it may not always be the case because they may say, "Oh, this nurse is terrible. They're so mean." Well, unfortunately, nurses sometimes, and I'm not saying that nurses are perfect and that they didn't do that, but sometimes it's like you come in here and when you're nurses are required to get a shot or like, do something, it's like, yeah, some people are not going to be thinking that they're very very nice at all either. Um so that I think is the biggest one, or just complaints like, I had a bad experience at this hospital, my father died here, I don't like this place, kind of deal. It's That's generally, I think, the most common complaints I hear during visits.
Gotcha. Uh, Now we're going to go down to rituals, experiences, and clinical encounters. Uh, what stands out to you about performing prayers, blessings, memorials, rites, or symbolic acts of comfort?
So I think for me, um, it is, if it's honoring what the patient wants. I've known chaplains that have gone in there and they make a visit and then they're like, leave with a prayer, and it's almost kind of like they put that stamp of like, this was a chaplain visit because I had a prayer. Not everybody wants a prayer. Not everybody needs a prayer because of their beliefs. Some may want that. It's about what's finding, and I say interventions because I think that's the best way of putting it. It's finding what's going to be the best, um um or what's going to provide the most comfort and support in a troubling time. Whether that's prayers, whether that's blessings, whether it's reading scripture, whether that's just sitting there and listening to them, you know, talk, um, or some sort of memorial, like you put memorials in there. Um, some of the things that we've done before is like, you have a dying patient making imprints of their thumb and some of that, fast dry clay or whatever. Um, that they have a thumbprint or something, or a fingerprint. So just the thing that's going to provide the most support, the most comfort to them. And then you talked about symbolic acts or comfort. So if there were, I can give you an example maybe about this. So one of the experiences I had was there was a patient that was getting close to death, actively dying, and went in there, and the patient was still somewhat, not really coherent, but kind of there. I went in and on their advanced directives, they put that the Catholic faith was very important to them. Right. I'm not Catholic, but I went in there to support and went and talked and was just talking, and they were kind of mumbling a little bit, but not really like I said, coherent. But then I read the rosary. I had to read it because I don't know it by heart. This patient was reciting it alongside me while I was reading it. Knew it better than I did, probably reading or probably saying it better than I did just reading it. Could tell that provided comfort, but it didn't just provide comfort for that patient. A family member ended up by calling me, or I ended up by calling them later and talking to them. And I had mentioned to them this encounter, and this loved one, the sibling, just broke down in tears. Just said, thank you, that knowing that my sibling was with somebody and had that support in their final moments means a lot to me. So, I mean, it is just finding support for them, but also for family. So, I mean, but if I went and read the rosary to another patient, probably wouldn't have the same effect. Everybody's different in what's going to support them and help them.
Understood. And expand a little bit more on this with memorialization. Are there ever any like times where you're asked both through the family or the patient to help plan for these things or be memorialized?
Yeah, I think that is definitely an option more in hospice, because most people want to try to get out of the hospital if they're going to die. Um, the hospice chaplains, I think, do have more of an opportunity to talk to them about kind of what do you want to do to kind of help memorialize, to be remembered, maybe planning funeral or what kind of stuff you want, or talking to them about you're going to die, you're right in that kind of, that this is coming. What do you want around you? What do you want here as you go through the process? Do you want music? Do you want family members? What do you want, something else that's going to be meaningful to you? So I've had family members go in and, like I said, play music. I mean, and you think like, quiet. No, they were playing like 60s, 70s rock because that's what the patient loved. I mean, so just finding ways that it's going to be comforting, but also how they will want to be memorialized and finding ways to, I guess, make memories as well. But and hospice chaplains, I think, have a lot more opportunities as well to do some of that type of stuff as it's kind of approaching death, and they're maybe in that um hospital hospitals. They generally try to get them to a hospice or get home with hospice, or maybe to a facility, because it's most of the time when it's coming, it's like they don't want them to be here because most people don't want to die in a hospital. So generally, if they die in hospital at that point, if it's not like an emergency coming through the emergency department, or an ICU where they're needing intensive care, but dying on the floors, it's because they're still so unstable that they couldn't be moved, and it's just like they're just going to die here. So, um, but in those type of situations like hospice or whatever, they're going to have more opportunities to kind of, hey, what do you want? And also talking to the family about that as well. So it's just kind of a little area that they can work on.
Gotcha. Uh, have you had any memorable or intense moments where security or safety concerns came into play?
Um, I really haven't. I mean, I've had patients yell or whatever, and I usually just leave because it's like if they don't want me there, I don't have to be there. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse or whatever that has to be there. It's totally voluntary on their part. I mentioned before there was a patient, or there was a patient that coded in a procedure, and the daughter was there, and the daughter was probably in her 50s. Um, and she just lost it. She was wailing and everything else. And I wasn't worried about my safety concerns or whatever. It's just that motion was spilling out, like we talked about. And so I was just sitting there with her, just listening. And times she would kind of like, grab on and just, hold. But the security was there in case it did get bad. But a lot of times I found that with chaplain, or I mean, I shouldn't say chaplains, but with patients, if they're getting, or they have motions that spill out, and sometimes it feels like, oh, they're danger. We need to call security. No, it's just these emotions are coming out, and people are like taking them as hostile or kind of aggressive acts. So I generally don't feel that way. I mean, there are patients, of course, that are going to be threatening and everything else, and for me, if I just try to kind of keep my distance, and like there's different things that they teach you. Well, I mean, it sounds like you work security, so just common sense. And I've worked security before as well, so um like keeping a distance. You don't want to be like really close where people can grab you, or having an exit strategy, or uh some of those type of things. I mean,
Mm.
with some patients, some little grandma that's in bed that's dying. I'm not too worried about jumping out of bed and taking me out. But inmates that are coming from jail, there are some, they have deputies and stuff here at that situation, but still I want to keep a little bit of a distance, just because I mean, you don't know, and just for my safety. But I mean, I've never gone into any rooms or anything and felt scared or concerned about my safety.
Here's a new question of mine. How often do you get human contact in this world? Like, what percentage of the time? Can you expand on that in any format?
Like, what do you mean, like like touching or?
Like a handshake, hug, hand on the shoulder. Do you have to like? Is it like a? Do you have to always ask, or is it like you just know there's a time where there's a shoulder to be, or a hand on
Yeah,
the?
I get what you're saying. Yeah, for me, I personally am a little bit more reserved with touching, because I want to make sure that in most situations it's okay. You don't want to just reach out. And my educator explained, I think, well, every time you're like touch or something should be meaningful. There's a purpose behind it. Um, so like handshaking. I mean, I'll shake hands. Sometimes patients will want their hands held. I'm okay with doing that, and because they want that. Putting a hand on a shoulder, whatever. There are times when you can sense that, um and even with like family or whatever, sometimes if you feel like that's needed, if you're kind of go slowly, so like reaching your hands slowly, if they kind of lean into it a little bit, you can tell that they're wanting it. If they're kind of lean away, then you know that they're not. But it's just being meaningful. But it's not like that's my go-to, because I really try to like. I mean, if a patient's like this and puts their hand out, then it's like, okay, they want. Um, but I'm not. I don't want to just go and do that. I'll tell you a funny story, because I think this one's a funny story. My educator who worked in um when I say educator, I probably should explain that a little bit. I'm not sure if I explained it. So when you do CPE, you have an educator that kind of helps you and does go through everything, um, the program, and the
Like a mentor?
CPE type. What's up?
Like a mentor?
Yeah, kind of like a mentor, but kind of like teaching a teacher, and kind of just in charge of that. They go through their own type of um, learning for that as well. Um, anyway, he was telling me, so he worked at, I think, a nursing home, or like a nursing home or retirement type center, and he had um, CPE students under him. Well, this chaplain um, went to visit this elderly lady, and he went there and he went and prayed with her, and he grabbed her hand and was holding it for the prayer. Well, she called the educator as soon as he left, and like he held or do you know what your chaplain did? He held my hand, and he's like, what? And she goes, back in my day, um, you know, um, men did not hold women's hand unless they were courting. So there's a cultural, our cultural, I shouldn't say cultural, but a different levels of comfort with different people. So it's just how comfort and what I feel like they need. Like, um, it sometimes I've seen people, and I have an example that some share, but I did see somebody that gave a hug, and it was more like, whose need was this? Was it the loved one's need, or was it the individual? And it was the individual. So it's like, who's if you feel that they need that, and like that's going to be comforting for them and supporting for them, by all means, put a hand on their shoulder, hold their hand. If it's not, then I keep my hands, you know, in front of me, and like crossed like that or whatever. Um, so it just to kind of, because it can be touching, can be very therapeutic, can be very helpful, but it can also be damaging, especially if there's any sort of trauma or anything involved.
Understood. Understood. How do you feel about providing chaplaincy remotely with the new technical age of like phones, videos, or any other hybrid way to do your service?
I think it's interesting. It's actually been not the hospital I'm at, but I know in the hospital I was at before, I believe they hired a remote chaplain. And I think it's a great opportunity. I think that it may be something that is seen more. Chaplains are able to offer um, a type of spiritual care visit remotely. Um, I think I mean, it's good. I personally still like the face to face because there's so many nuances and different things you can catch. But I think if you don't have the ability to be in person, a phone call, video, whatever is uh, a great opportunity. I think my wife is a mental health counselor, and when she first started out, she was strictly meeting with people in person, but now she does all of her work online, and a lot of that's come about through because of COVID and different things. I don't think chaplaincy will ever get to that point, but I think that there's going to be opportunities for online chaplaincy. So,
Okay, cool. And to expand on that, do you have any thoughts on like the idea of AI chaplains or digital spiritual care tools?
that's an interesting one because that's one that's still kind of up in a lot of debate going around on the AI chaplain stuff, especially when it comes to certification and different things, because you have to do some writing and competencies and stuff, and they're really leery about AI writing things or um, different different type things. So I mean, I think I think AI in general can be a good tool, but solely relying on AI, uh, not always the best. And digital spiritual care tools, I think, once again, can be a good opportunity. I mean, there's doctors and different things that are using AI to help supplement them and help them in their work. I think that could be a possibility in the future with spiritual care tools. As far as um, like replacing chapels, I don't think that will happen just because of the nature of the work and being able to be there, show empathy. I just don't think AI has that ability, but being able to supplement, like, hey, did you think of this? Or maybe there was this going on. It's like, oh, and or you kind of like diagnostic tools or whatever the like doctors are using. There might be something available at that point, but time will tell. I'm sure it will get there. But
Good.
hopefully, I won't get my job won't be replaced by AI.
Keep it human. Also, as I think about this world, like I'm a public notary, like to work in depositions. But as a public notary, I would imagine is that skill set valued or needed in the palliative care setting?
It's interesting. We sign healthcare power of attorneys because of being in the hospital. We have the specific form that we can sign as a witness. However, um, a lot of times the advanced directives, healthcare power of attorney, living will, they need to be, if they're going to be legal, outside of the hospital, need to be signed by a notary. And so that's something that I think is, and I think from what I understand, this is before my time here, but apparently some of the chaplains years ago here at the hospital I'm currently at were notaries as well to be able to do that.
Mm.
So now whereas in um, I think the where it kind of gets into the tricky part with that is if you're the chaplain and you're providing care, can you still act as a notary in that situation? I'm not 100% sure. Um, in this situation, we're witnessing it because we're not directly involved with like medical care. We can be witnesses on the hospice side, and in that I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I think there's definitely a role for if you're already a notary to utilize that ability in those advanced directives.
Understood. And even like for with the family or making plans and people have an epiphany on beds, I would figure at some point, and from my notary experience, like as long as one doesn't financially gain from it, like I'm not in the document, then it's
Right.
okay. So, yeah, I don't know if that would be an asset just as much as someone that works in H&R Block will be a hashtag notary as well, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the thing. And I think if this is something you are interested in, I would definitely keep that because that might be a great asset that people look at and go, "Oh, well, he's an over. This is something we can use." And it might be if I hiring a chaplain that is like, "Oh, that we have this chaplain that has this specific thing, this licensing that he can do." So I mean, yeah, I think that it's a very good option. And like I said, each department's different, each hospital's different. And I shouldn't say just hospitals, but each I don't want to say facility, but every employer that employs or employs chaplains is going to be different, and what their goals are and what they want to do.
Cool. That really gives me a lot of confidence in this world. So thank you for that. For
Yeah.
favoring me. Um, but like for personal sustainability and spiritual grounding, how do you prevent taking the emotional weight of your work home with you?
Yeah, I mean that's part of what you learn in CPE too, is being able to practice that self-care, because you're going to be dealing with some really heavy stuff. Um, One, being able to know how to sit in situations that are pretty tragic, and being able to go home and not let it pull you down. And there's lots of different things that people do. Um, and that's one of those things that everybody is different. For me, when I want to start working out again, and I'm going to start doing that, and I'm really out of shape. But I'm very blessed because, like I said, my wife's a mental health counselor, and so we're both kind of in that same field. She's not giving me therapy or anything, but when I go home and say, "Man, I've had a one hell of a day," she's like, she really gets it. And maybe there'll be days when I go home and she's, "Man, I've had one hell of a day." I'm like,
Mm.
I hear you. Having that support. Also finding other things. I found it was funny because one of the things that was just kind of off the wall. So last year I was in the hospital. It was after Christmas, and my son I love the Indiana Jones movies,
Mm.
and my son gave me an Indiana Jones Lego set for Christmas. And so I was working in the hospital that day, and I had like two or three deaths, and it was just, I mean, I was in the ICU. It was just a really rough day. And I came home and I was like, I'm exhausted. It has been a day. And so I'm like, you know what? I want to do something different. So I pulled those Legos out, and just doing something with um that just following directions that wasn't, it kind of turned my brain off and I could just do that, was really helpful for me. Um, One of the chaplains actually that sits right next to me and works at night, he does a lot of gardening. Um, there, I know chaplain in my last hospital, he's a big time fitness, working out type guy. So everybody just kind of has to find their own self-care to be able to process those emotions and not take them home. I mean, and there's going to be cases that hit you harder than others. It's just the nature of it. Um, it's just being able to continue to function. And I was telling a chaplain resident this the other day that sometimes it's just taking a break and walking away from it and taking a walk is sometimes all you need to
I got you. I got you. I had to grab a charger.
do. I hear you.
Uh, all right, to expand a little bit more, this is what I'm really curious about. Have you ever had experiences that you would describe as like spiritual, mysterious, or hard to explain? Dare I say paranormal?
um, I've had experiences where um I feel like there was divine intervention um involved. Um just so for example, um there was one that in my last hospital where the I got a call to go to check on a patient in the emergency department, and they wanted prayer or blessing, and it just so happened that so went down there and started talking to the person, and the individual um uh told me the her religious affiliation so happened. And I always say I work for the hospital, but if I'll tell them if they really press. But same religious affiliation and identification. She wanted something specific, and just so happened, she needed that day, and I was the one that took the phone call. Or I've had people um from the congregation that I'm in been here just, and I've been there to offer help or whatnot. So I think sometimes it's just those simple things. Um I'm trying to think of any other um type situations. Just running into people. I've been gone or had one where the person was discharged and they came back. I found that they were coming back, and I ran into the family coming back in, and I'd worked with the family before. So I mean, I I don't think I don't want to say like major, like you know heavens opening, choruses of angels singing, but things like that. I think that's like um you could chalk it up to coincidence, but I think that there was divine intervention and behind it. So for me
Okay.
personally, I believe that.
Any ever like extra shadows in the room or like levitating gust of wind or something?
Not at this job. I did work, like I said, I told you I worked at in a home with developmentally delayed adults, and one of the residents, mother had died months before, and this person moved into this house, and I swear the mother was still there, and I saw a shadow moving, and I felt touched and stuff, but nothing really um, nothing like that. Or um, I'm sure other chaplains probably have, and I've heard of all sorts of crazy stories. And sometimes patients, I haven't had it happen, but will ask for exorcisms or something. Um, a lot of those come from like if you work in a behavioral health unit, because they may be thinking that they're possessed or something, and may just be voices like schizophrenia or something.
Mhm.
Um, but once again, like I said, I believe that you can have those supernatural. I love the supernatural type stuff. I mean, I get it. I get into the whole ghost hunting shows, and those type of shows I think are fun. But um, the and I think I've heard of people having different type dreams and stuff. There's the video that they showed. Did you watch it? It's on the um excuse me, the website, Death is But a Dream. I don't know if you watch that in the lounge,
Rings a bell.
the Thanatology. Anyway, it's good talking about how people have dreams before they die,
Mm,
like of loved ones or whatever.
mm,
And excuse me, I've heard people talk about that. I've actually had a patient today mention that they had died before and seen the light in the tunnel before they came back, and that they were not um fearful of death because of that experience.
mm.
So,
Okay.
I
So
mean,
in no sense has like any like woo stuff ever followed you home.
no, I haven't had anything follow me home. Uh, Not that I'm aware. Maybe it hasn't. I'm just so oblivious to it, and
Mm,
I just come home zapped, and
mm,
maybe they walk in and realize how crazy my house is, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not having any part of that."
mm.
Um, no, I haven't had anything uh too crazy. But you bring up a good point. Now I'm gonna have to ask some of the other chaplains if they've had any of that type of experience. Because now
Mhm.
I'm curious.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to like, because you know your faith, you have a faith. Do you utilize any talismans of any format just to protect you or keep you grounded, kind of like Inception?
I don't. My faith really doesn't. But I mean, I really have no. I think people that believe in those type of things, I think that's great. Whatever, if you believe, and that's part of your theology, then utilize them. But for me, I don't. Um, I like utilize any sort of um, you know, talismans or
Or
anything
even like a
else.
book or any format, you hold a certain scripture or like
Oh yeah,
you
scripture
process.
and stuff. Yeah, but um, like for study and for comfort and for learning. But as for like reading it to kind of like keep me safe from I mean, it's not why I'm reading it. I mean, uh, I think it helps keep me. It helps keep my faith going, and sometimes, um, for me, I will say this: that some of the situations that I've seen and some of the things that um uh, I've been a part of, like when with the codes or different things, really makes me go, man, really is. I mean, it just seems so unfair and so unjust. It sometimes goes, really, yeah, is there a higher or divine being out there? And I know there is. For me, there is, and I definitely believe that. And I know that I'm not God. And I think turning to those books and those things help give me faith. But sometimes it's you see these things and um it's hard to. I mean, for example, I a few about a month ago. Yeah, it's been about a month. There was a 2-month-old that was brought in and ended up by dying from sudden infant death syndrome. It's just, I mean, and saw them working, paramedics and doctors and everything, and you're just like, man, why? I mean, this just doesn't make any sense. And uh, for me, it's like I don't know the answers. Is there a reason for all these things? I don't know if there ever is, but I know that there is a God that is there, and yeah, and I know that I'm not that God. I'm not God, and I wouldn't want to be, because there's just a lot of things that go on that I sometimes, just like I said, just don't make any sense to me. And if I try to always make sense of them, it will cause my head to spin in circles and go numb, I think.
Okay. And it's double down on the talisman concept. It's not necessarily like a crystal per se, but like even like just whether it be a book or like a beat, any physical object or a fidget spinner, or do you like have a hand massaging technique to keep you present, like because
Oh,
ever
okay,
intense.
yeah, something like that. So one of the things that I do if I feel like I need to kind of ground myself again is um and my therapist I saw or offered this suggestion. I was like, this is really good. Is I'll curl my toes alternately, so like right and then left and right and left, and so it's not noticeable, but it kind of helps ground you. So I don't. Are you familiar with EMDR? With eye move? What is it? EMDR, eye movement desensitize or desensitization. Anyway, something like that. EMDR. Anyway, it's a type of therapy that basically kind of utilizes and kind of goes back and forth with each side of the brain, and it's been proven to work really well. And that alternating those things kind of helps do that. It helps bring you down. So I'll do that sometimes if things are like if I feel like that kind of that, I want to run away type thing, staying present, it kind of helps ground me and it's not noticeable. So people won't see that I'm doing it. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think that people can easily have something, a spinner or beads or something like a rosary or something that they maybe use or something that might do that. And I mean, like I said, I think whatever your beliefs are, I think if you want to have a crucifix there in your room, great. If you want to have Buddha there, or you want your you want your Quran or whatever was going to help give you comfort or whatever, more power to you. I think that's I think it's a great thing to utilize anything that's going to help comfort you in times that are in times of distress.
Gotcha. And now that I think about the talisman, like I know for me is like my expression. I'm very expressive, so I don't know for you. You have to, ever have to like bite your tongue or have a moment where you shouldn't show or you're not aware of how your face might come off.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things that you kind of work on. Um, I have to admit it is a little easy. It was a little easier when we were still kind of there were times, and I wasn't a chaplain during COVID, but there were times during the in the hospital as that before that we would go kind of under COVID precautions where we'd be wearing the mask, and sometimes it's a little easier to hide those, but it also kind of takes away some of that connection because people are not able to see your full face. But that's another thing with CP that they did is like if you're going and maybe you're working through things, your educator or maybe some of the other students may notice something. So one of the things that my educator noticed sometimes that I would do if maybe it was I was in the middle of kind of a maybe a difficult one and I had kind of a almost like a little chuckle that I would do at times, and it would just kind of like come out, and I wouldn't really mean to do it or really know why I was doing it, just kind of came out. And so something like that. Or there was another chaplain that would sometimes blink their eyes kind of funny, and just like little things that you can go, oh hey, did you know that? And it's like, oh, I didn't realize that. I'll work on that. So just and I think as you are get more experience as chaplain, you are able to regulate. I won't say regulate, help control some of the emotions your face does. And I mean, of course, you're going to have times when you're going to kind of show that emotion, maybe tear up a little bit in times when you're being there for patients, but um, that's okay because I think you're demonstrating showing empathy.
Gotcha, gotcha. And to close out this section, a few more to go. Do you personally feel like the soul has weight physically in this world, or some kind of substance? And how would you personally describe the soul?
Yeah, I think this gets more into my theology. Um, if it was a patient, I would ask them their opinions and what they believe. As for me, I believe that there is some substance to the soul. Um, so I'll tip my hand. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, so oftentimes called Mormon. Um, not a lot of us chaplains out there, more in the military, um, but civilian side not as much. But one of um, the founder of the church this made a statement that um, everything is matter, even like the soul is just more of a fine or pure type matter, so you can't see it. Um, like as for weight, there's been studies I know that have been done to try to see if the body is different, or to try to like after death, or try to um capture the soul, or and I mean there's that mind body philosophical debate that rages on. Is the is the mind something more than the body, or is it just the body, the physiological? And I mean, there's no answers to it. I mean, it does come right down to faith, what you believe. And for me personally, I believe that there is a soul, there is something else after, and I believe that people that do go to a better place. And I think that um and I think some of these near death experiences are really interesting. For me, they're not like confirming, like, oh yeah, this is the proof. It's just they're interesting to hear a lot of the experiences that people have. And I wouldn't just go in there and be like, hey, this is what's going on. There's studies out there, because um that's not my job. I mean, if they believe that and bring that up, I'd be like, yeah, those are great. I've seen those. That's, I mean, like I said, the guy today talked about mentioned a light at the end of the tunnel. Um, but just bringing it up is just inappropriate, because I mean it's just using my theology and my beliefs to help support them and theirs, not imposing them, but to help me support them in what they believe. I think is the key.
Gotcha, gotcha. So now we're looking towards the future. What does the future of chaplaincy and palliative spiritual care more broadly look like in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I think that it's growing. I think that it's becoming more in line with some of the other fields like social work and maybe some of the therapy type thing. I say that because there's different tracking that they do. They're not billing for chaplaincy, but they have codes or whatever that they can put down to say that a chaplain saw that are kind of go to insurances, or I don't know if they go to insurances, but they're out there. So to show that it's becoming um uh, more of a practice that's in there. So I think that it will continue to grow. There's lots of there's chaplaincy jobs out there, and I think that especially with hospice, um, there's definitely um, a call for our different could be a call for that, because I mean baby boomers and those a little older than that, there's a lot of that are dying, aging and dying, and hospice is kind of a way a lot of people are wanting to go, wanting to die on their own terms within their home. And so I think that it will continue to grow. And also the fact that chaplaincy is getting to the point where it really is saying, hey, we're not here as pastor, or we're not here. What did the book call them? Pastors, or not pastors. I'm trying to remember what the book labeled uh uh chaplains as. It wasn't, was it pastors? Anyway, the big kind of thing, like um we're not pastors, we're chaplains. We're here for people that aren't religious, people that are religious, kind of everybody in between, and we're here to support you in whatever that is, whether that's saying a prayer, calling a priest, or just being there to talk, or um talking or bringing in some, I guess, nature or whatever they believe or whatever it may be. So having that aspect, I think that there's a real call for that, and I think our hospitals and chaplain, our hospitals, palliative and or not palliative, hospice and different things are adopting more, are involving more chaplains in practices.
Okay. So the spin off on that, what innovations, spiritual, clinical, or interdisciplinary, do you hope to see?
Um, I think that um, maybe a little bit more consistency across the board for maybe some of the or for some maybe some of the charting. That way it's in assessments, and that's been something that's been kind of they've been back and forth for a while. Like so, the assessments and charting and everything they can be um, useful to other providers, to other professionals as they go there. Because I don't know how often people like nurses or providers will read a chaplain's note, and there may be cases where they look at a note and it's not helpful at all. Sometimes it may be very helpful. So having that, and then also just the maybe the electronic medical record recording, have that be a little bit more consistent. I mean, we use the same program that from the hospital I was at before to here, but the way that we do things is a little differently. Um, so maybe a little bit more consistently. And which is funny because the providers, so nurses, physicians, whatever, it's pretty consistent from the hospital that I was at to this hospital. So maybe a little bit more consistency in that I think would be some of the nice innovations that I would like to see.
Cool, cool. Last couple. What should I consider when exploring my options for clinical pastoral training?
I think it really depends on kind of what you're looking. There's lots of opportunities. Um, so um, some of it's like, do you want to do you want something that's close? I mean, distance. Some will have, some of it is cost. You might have to pay for some of them. So I had to pay for my units $600. But that's because I worked within the system. People that took it that didn't work in the system or online, I think could pay up to 16,000 or not 16,000, 1,600
Yeah.
a unit. Whereas here, the hospital I'm at now, the program they have it set up where you work and it's like you're within, you get a stipend and you're working within the hospital. You're getting, because CPE requires, each unit requires 300 clinical hours and 100 educational hours. So basically, meaning that you're going to be learning, working on things, and then you're going to be in the hospital meeting with patients. Um, but there's no charge, and so there's different options. So it really depends on uh, what you want, what you're looking at doing, and if you're wanting to uh, like if you're willing to relocate or you want to stay do it online, if you're going to work for a hospital, finding those type of things, and just I guess kind of there's not a lot of stuff out there to tell you exactly everything that CPE is, and I think that that's a good thing because you get into it and you don't. I didn't realize for myself personally the um like how much we're going to delve into some of the stuff that would be hard, that would maybe come up when I was in a visits with patients that may be a hindrance. Like, oh crap, I don't want to be here as they're telling me someone's dying or they're doing CPR or whatever it is. Um, and um, so you're working on those, and I think it's just kind of finding where you want to be, what type of educational experience you want to have, if you're willing to relocate. Because there might be some close, there might be some further. There's just lots of different opportunities, and then how much you're willing to spend. Um, and it requires usually fills out application, a little bit of writing, and then interviews with that. So those are just some options. I think our program here is great. They have an educator here is really good. Um, I think it's definitely we definitely have a um, great program where I'm at currently.
Cool, cool. And just an advice, like, what would you recommend for someone to make the highest compensation in the chaplain world while still feeling grounded? Like, what's the dream star chaplain gig? If it's
Oh
not,
boy. It really depends on um I mean, if you're wanting to make, lots and lots of money, it's not gonna happen as a chaplain. Some of the ones that probably pay the most, I think maybe like the VA does pay a lot, like for chaplains. Um, but just having, if you're wanting to go into that and to have the best opportunities for jobs and getting those is, I think, of course, having all the requirements, but also just getting the education and the background. Um, and for me, I already have my master's degree, but I wanted more training to be able to better help. And so I think just having more training, learning more, continually making yourself um, um, to being better, to that you can help patients, I think is the the most or the best advice that I could give it. I mean, it really depends. I mean, I love what I do, and I feel like for the compensation, I feel like I really am pleased with everything that I've got here, especially um with finishing CPE and starting as a staff chaplain, getting a staff chaplain where I'm not working weird hours or weekends, but working Monday through Fridays is really nice. Um, so it's just find and also finding your niche that is like if you want to do palliative care, learning and doing as much with palliative care as you can. If there's other sort of chaplaincy or hospice, learning about hospice and getting experience there. And then there's different advanced certifications and stuff you can get along the way. Um, I think those are what I would say.
cool, cool. Yeah, that's all my questions I have. And I really
Okay.
appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want
Yeah.
to add to finish this off at all?
No, I mean, if you have anything, just let me know. Or if you're still have questions, or if you do want to or have any more questions or want to know more about CPE or anything, just let me know. I'll forward you some of the websites and different things, and you can research it more. But that's whatever you'd like, and you can look it up just generally under like ACPE, and usually you should pull it up. But yeah, I wish you the best, and let me know if you have any questions or need anything else as you're working on the paper.
Thank you, Tyson. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Well, you have a good day.
Have a great one, man. Peace.
All right. See ya.